evening, everyone. I'm Ramya Nair from MFG Media. Welcome to this exclusive fireside chat with an industry thought leader, Mr. Sandip Ghose, the MD and CEO, Birla Corporation Ltd. This fireside chat is presented by Frinks.AI and powered by MFG Media. The theme for today's discussion is Cementing the Future, Digitalization in Cement Manufacturing. This exclusive fireside chat is to learn key insights and trends in the cement manufacturing industry from an experienced leader. Today's discussion will be co-moderated by Aditya Agrawal, the co-founder from Frinks.AI, and by my colleague, Mr. Manish Kulkarni, co-founder and director of MFG Media. We thank Mr. Ghose for sparing time from his busy schedule and joining us today. A brief introduction about our industry thought leader. Mr. Ghose is a highly reputed business leader and general management professional with multidisciplinary skill sets. Now the MD and CEO of Birla Corporation Ltd, flagship company of the MP Birla Group. He has nearly 4 decades of experience holding a variety of senior leadership positions in industries ranging from consumer goods, FMCG, media, and cement across India and Nepal. He is qualified as a chartered accountant and professional coach accredited by the International Coach Federation. He's a strong believer in the India growth story and passionate about mentoring and developing leaders for the future. Mr. Ghose is a very well-known blogger, writer, and a thought leader. Thank you so much, sir, once again for joining.
My first question to Mr. Sandip Ghose, and first of all, thank you so much for sparing your valuable time. Is Mr. Ghose, digital technologies or digitalization is a huge trend which is impacting industries across the board. My question to you is how to leverage digital technologies to improve the energy efficiency and decarbonize the cement manufacturing, because as we know, cement is a highly energy intensive industry. Over to you, Mr. Ghose.
First of all, thank you so much for having me for this fireside chat. It's a very innovative platform, and I'm indeed very happy to participate with you and thereby reach out to a very large audience. Thank you so much for inviting me once again. Now, specifically, when you're talking of energy, I suppose that's one of the first target areas, and where you can go in terms of, the kiln process, your whole manufacturing process, the kiln energy processes, which can be controlled through through digitization at various levels. Even before you get to the kiln, in terms of what people are doing in terms of streamlining the power production, whether it is through wasted recovery systems or whether it is in the people who have captive power generation, or wherever you are having a source of unconventional power or renewable energy, how to optimize all of them in terms of making your power feed. That itself has a lot of scope of using digitization, AI, and the rest of it. Thereafter, it comes in terms of your actual kiln operation, what you're doing, and how do you control the both power consumption, the feed, the emissions, and the rest of it. But more importantly, also, what digitization really can do is increase the throughput and the capacity of the same kilns operation. Your productivity over there, bringing the overall power consumption down. And that is what will be the real moving factor for people moving into digitization. Because if you can release 10%, let's say, additional capacity of your plants, and say as normal cement company of our size, a 20 million ton company is what we are, assume that we could release even 5 to 10% of our capacity, additional capacity, it means if we had to add that capacity, we would have had to spend another 200, 300 crores in the least for a 1 million ton addition. And if we were to do a total addition of that, I'm talking 1 million ton grinding capacity, if we had to do it totally for, integrated unit of 2 or 3 million ton, that would mean over 2,000 crores of investment. Now, so if you are using digitization intelligently, that can be a huge boon. And this is one of perhaps the low-hanging fruit in terms of how the cement industry can get in. And that's where I think there is a lot of work happening, because there is also a bit of a synergistic relationship from the equipment manufacturers of the cement mills, as well as the equipment suppliers for, say, the power generation, whether it's WHRS or whether you're talking about the captive power, or everybody kind of, they are in sync. Everybody is trying to do that. So there is a correlation there. At the same time, there are also people who are trying to help you in emission, and that they are also investing a lot of research work in that. So this is where there is synergistic effort rather than the cement industry really trying to invent it themselves. Their job is much more of assimilation. Assimilation of what is available in the ecosystem, larger ecosystem, and putting it together. So therefore, they have to invest today, the cement industry, in capability and competencies within the system by which you can select the best technology. You're able to engage with your various vendors, suppliers of this thing to raise your own productivity. And that's where the focus is shifting. So you'll find a lot of organizations are today engaging people at a very senior level, at a qualified level, to look at these aspects, rather than just simple vanilla IT or digitization, which they were doing. Because a lot of this thing is, you don't develop those IT systems, or you don't even buy them off the shelf. It has to be linked with your equipment, and both the back end as well as in the front end, what is there, apart from your manufacturing. So you need to assimilate all of that and build into your system, and that requires a special competency. And so that is where I think there is a work happening. But there are other areas, cement industry, for some reason, although I must point out, when you said we are the second largest cement industry in the world, we are in some ways much more advanced than many other countries. In fact, we are way ahead of China in terms of our technological capabilities, the way our plants are done. We have much more modern plants. Our emissions are far better controlled. We produce so much of blended cement, which is really like green cement, which other countries don't produce as much. So there, in many ways, Indian cement industry is quite advanced. But when it came to these kind of technology adoption, probably the industry didn't feel the need of doing this earlier. And now both, the impetus of one is moving away from fossil fuels, the cost of fuel, of which there was a terrible shock last year when people realized during the Ukraine war, the kind of, how it can throw you totally off gear if you're really not managing your fuel supply chain and power supply chain well. So that has been an impetus, plus all the emphasis on ESG and the rest of it. So this is making people look at this area, I think, not just more seriously, on a fast track. Today, we are in a disruptive world, and I think here we have already faced disruption. So this is a disruption-led, or disruption, I might call anticipated move, which is happening. So I see this happening very fast, very rapidly. Between the time we are speaking and if you were to do this talk 5 or 6 months down the line, you'll find a lot of changes have happened, like it's happening all over in digitization.
Could you throw some light on how to minimize downtime and increase the asset availability in the cement manufacturing?
See, in some ways, I covered that when I'm talking about all those elements. What I talked of earlier, cement mill is essentially what is a cement mill. It's really about energy management. What rest of it is the mechanical part of it is, I think, pretty basic. The real science lies in how you manage your energy and thereby conversion. So that's where the technology lies. So everything else you do is related to that. And more than half the story is done when you're managing the energy well. And thereafter comes other bits of maintenance, which is whether it's your refractories or whether it's the mechanical parts and all of that. Now, there, I think it is relatively simple. Relatively simple, I'm not saying it's simple, but I think the focus first, if you get your energy management right, I think is more than half the job done. And then comes these bits, when you say the downtime, and predictive maintenance, as you talked about, from going from a preventive maintenance status, that is what brings down your overall the downtime, etc. But I think that is going to the real changes you'll have when you have the total technology chain modernized. But now the efficiencies will come from a lot of other factors, which is not easily perceived. Say in the cement plant, evacuation takes a long time because they were not really planned in that manner. Now, today, if you have a logistics management system of within the factory, the movement, traffic of things, and how the trucks are being loaded, the automatic loading system, if you can make them, minimal human intervention and, cut down on your turnaround time inside the plant and increase those efficiencies, that will also give a tremendous kick. Because if you were to look at the two cost components in cement, it is energy, and next to that is logistics. And logistics cost is not just a function of how much distance you travel, but what's the kind of turnaround you get, because that is also sweating the assets there is equally important. So a lot of people are therefore spending equal amount of energy today. By energy, I mean mental energy, and in terms of management time and engagement, in looking at this whole logistics aspect. And I think that's where the next chain, next wave of you'll find innovations coming, because we as a country as a whole, I think, are yet to take advantage of both the infrastructure, both in terms of physical infrastructure and the digital and other infrastructure which has gone into the system in the last few years. I don't think we have encashed the benefits of that in our actual movement of material. So, for example, it might sound very basic. Say the whole GST system was supposed to ease the transportation, and it was supposed to change the way you distribute goods. Earlier people would have go downs and across every border or before every border and all that. Those were supposed to change, and coupled with when you were having the better roads and infrastructure, the movement should have been faster and more economical. But I don't think that is something which has really taken off, because we see as a country itself, the logistics component, one of our logistics cost component, is much higher than other. When the costing is coming, people are now beginning to realize that this is where you need to have the next round of savings. And one way the savings will come only is through digitization, by which you redefine the way you move things. And today only, coincidentally, one was discussing this new I'm digressing a bit, but in a different sense, it's also digitization. This whole ONDC portal, which the government has launched, if bulk commodities like cement get into that, you will find that it might totally change the way these products are distributed. Because if, say, for example, you are a customer, you place the order directly on me. I'm not getting into the marketing aspects of it, how you will reach me. Let's assume that you want to buy cement and you, for whatever reason, you choose MP Birla and I'm on that net. You come and place the order directly to me. Now, what happens? Today, to reach the material to you, I'm dependent on my dealer and my retailer or sub-retailer. Now, my challenge would be that I've received the order. How soon can I fulfill it? So, and because you've booked the order with me, as soon as I deliver the material, I'll also receive the payment through the same payment gateway. So the role of the dealer, which was there today, a lot of it was credit thing, is their stocking of material, those things will change. And probably what we will have to have is their job will become like many CNFAs over there for fulfillment. The role will change. And then if that changes, how do I replenish their goods as they require faster? So we'll have to redefine our entire go-to-market as well as the supply chain at that end. And that can only be achieved through rapid digitization. So these are changes which will happen, which I don't think today we are even able to visualize. And again, the pace of change, as you were saying, will happen very fast. And people who are, who probably are the first movers, who have the wherewithal, because a lot of this investment will have to happen front end. People who are able to put up that investment at the front end, I think they will have a first mover advantage, and that will become a challenge. So the game is changing dramatically, and at every stage, therefore, whatever, I think the focus will be more than what is happening in change of technology. There is only incremental changes which will happen by technology. I believe I'm talking of the basic manufacturing technology. You can't change much there, but these are the areas where you will see much change. Again, related to downtime, sorry, I'm probably preempting or moving forward. One of the biggest issues in cement factories is how to manage safety. Okay. Safety is an area where digitization is already playing a major role. And it's changing the way the plant safety, because any small accident, that can also result in the downtime which you're talking about. Okay. So if you're preventing, one is not talking about fatal accidents, one is not talking about, but any lost time incident, if you are able to save it through, prevent it through digitization, that itself can contribute to a better, more efficient managed plant.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing insights on how we can leverage the digital technologies for optimizing the energy operations and the logistics. You brought up a really interesting insights on how ONDC could be a way to completely revolutionize the supply chain moving forward. If I could draw a little bit of parallel, we can compare it to how D2C brands, when the e-commerce enablement came into the picture, completely disrupted the way how legacy brands were operating. And I believe that it might be something that we can see in the future on the other industries other than the consumer goods as well. That's really insightful. We talked a little bit about the downtime and the management of the machines, but as we know that for the highest value generation, it's the harmony between the man and machine. You touched upon the safety a little bit. I but wanted to know a little bit more about some of the use cases pinpointed to the digital technologies, how is it helping you in the safe and reliable operations? So if you can explore it a little bit more on that, it would be really great.
That's where it's really, we have used the safety, digital technology and safety very successfully. And in one of our newest projects, which we set up, which we did not only without any fatality, without any major accident, which it's a greenfield project which we set up. And much of it happened by the use of digital technology at various stages. Because you then, when you're talking about safety, you really talk about, you're checking all the things which you used to earlier do, of just locking in when people are moving, not moving, you are able to track their movement. When people are, moving by wherever they're supposed to, whether the vigilance is happening right, or when somebody, each thing today, thanks to your, the barcode scanners, even digital cameras, everything you could track it. And then sometimes we are today, even for a security purpose, we are using things like drone technology. So you, by that, you're not only making it much more effective, you are also, reducing your manpower elements, which you require for these sort of operation. So this is where, when you are looking at, this is what you cannot do, no matter how much of vigilance you want to create through man-based or human interface. These things can be done way, way better. And that when you are doing things in terms of your digitally through all these means, I think the effectiveness which you get cannot be managed by, even if you were to put 100 people on upfront to do that, because it's a question of what's happening at that moment on the ground, and that's how, and that can only be tracked through this. But then also the next stage will happen even here. You are saying the predictive bit, which will come. I was on a program 2 days ago on this very unfortunate tragic train accident. So what happened? And there was a lot of talk about the safety systems. Now, when you're running a railway network, I'm digressing a bit, of the size India does with the kind of traffic we have got. Those safety systems cannot be done in the old way of, the red flag and the green flag, or human interventions. It has to be digitized. And digitized there, and this is a term which I use, which somehow people liked it. I said, from the preventive, there also you have to go into a predictive sort of a situation. You anticipate a situation if you really follow what happened in this. Now there are a lot of visual images people have recreated that, by which they're showing that exactly how it happened. Now, in those situations, there can be even a second level predictive thing that, okay, if this is likely to happen, this is probably the how the signals would come, and this is the second thing which could go wrong. So how you prevent that, there your predictive and preventive safety checks could, and the same thing holds true, inside our cement plants. And forget anything else, we also have movement of trains, movement of engines and all, and in that also you do, though not of that scale, but even those are situations where you do have safety incidents.
How digitalization is helping you, the data is helping you to plan, schedule, and monitor the packaging systems, packaging material, using the latest technologies?
See, scheduling and management of, when you're talking, it's like management of inventory, etc. These are, I think, fairly lower order technology usage. So this is, happening not just, which is not very necessarily specific to cement plants. It is happening in a lot of similar industries everywhere. So I don't think there is a great deal of innovation involved. It is a question of adaptation of those technologies, and it's more a matter there, I would say, of change management in terms of the attitude of people and how they adopt it, at the shop floor level and all, even in safety. What we see is where these sort of things help is because if you were to simply try to implement it, people's attitude, they will probably give a lot of things go by. But when you're doing it, tracking it digitally, that is something which you are able to either circumvent or catch on if there is a violation. So in the same way, these are these are not rocket science technologies which you are trying to introduce into the system. This has already been done, being practiced, implemented elsewhere in different sorts of industries. Here, therefore, the question is of how you get people to accept it, change of mindsets, and that's where cement industry has been, without in any way sounding negative, we are a relatively older industry. You'll find in the cement industry people have remained in the same jobs or the same factory for years together, and sometimes you'll find people are even in the not necessarily in the legacy companies like ours, but if you look at some of the more whether it's the larger companies or so-called modern companies, or those which used to be multinationals, there are people have been there maybe for a couple of generations, because those are all plants they have acquired, from that time. So people are set in their old ways, and making that is really the challenge there, rather than the availability of technology or in adoption of technology. A lot of technology you may adopt, but implementation becomes a big issue over there. And in some cases, it is the external ecosystem is changing. Like today, I remember 6 or 7 years ago, when I came into this company. At that point in time, introducing simple things like a GPS in a truck was a challenge. But today, even private truck owners are installing their own GPS because they want to keep a track on their drivers or people who are moving. So it's no longer a challenge for you to have a GPS there. Earlier, you had to either put it themselves, put yourself, if there is, unless it's a dedicated vehicle, you couldn't do that. Now, even if somebody doesn't put a GPS, you can just track it with his mobile phone. And do so. Some of those changes are happening. It's inevitable. But when it comes into your own plant, how you track the vehicle movement, how far you digitize it, these become matter of change of practice. So even something like storing inventory, cement industry stores some huge, like you get, say, coal consignments. Okay, you are storing in an open yard in huge, heaps, etc. Now, how do you do the inventory control over there? How are you doing your QC control? All of this. So in this, again, technology can play a role. Technology can play a big role, which we don't understand in the mines management. Both at a surface level and both at the mining level below, how you're mining, where you're mining, you can do that. Now, these things were not done earlier. Now people are realizing the importance of that, because your limestone is becoming scarcer, especially in the older plants. So people want to do more efficient mining, more targeted mining. But they are using greater technology in the mines management. So these are things, because while, as you said, we are a large cement, second largest cement industry, our costs are high, largely because of the power and where we remain highly dependent in the fluctuating situation. And so therefore, every other means, unless we really tackle those and get our costs down, we can never be competitive going forward.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. I think it's been quite a ride discussing all these high impact digital strategies that are making waves in the cement industry. You also touched upon a bit of the challenges that the industry faces in the digital adoption. We're aware of these hurdles into the large organizations, that is of cultural resistance and the legacy systems. Could you share some of your experience on how you have been able to navigate these challenges internally in the organization? And also, if you can extend some advice for the innovators and the startup founders out there who are also facing these issues on their journey, I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated.
See, there are two things. First of all, it's true for everywhere. It has to be a top-down. Unless your top management is committed, it doesn't work. But at the same time, the risk is, people get very easily carried away by, the kind of solutions which are offered to them. And then they embark on systems which are, either it takes a long time to implement, it requires a great deal of change in way of working. It's more complex, and thereby you don't get immediate results, and somewhere down the line you lose steam. And in today's world, what's happening is, if you're taking too long to implement something, the technology also changes by the time you're finished doing what you started doing. So I think there are the approach. What I think works is be realistic and do things which are sort of low-hanging fruits, which you can do at the first level, because building the credibility is very important. When people start seeing certain results, they adopt it much more quickly. Take things where it affects them. I gave you an example of safety. If safety people see that this is happening, people immediately realize the benefits and they take it on. So these are areas in which I think the first level changes can happen. Simple things like, HR systems cement plants deal with a lot of contract labor and people who are coming in. If you have, say, a contract labor management system, or even when you're talking of safety during a project phase, you have people moving in and out. There's a very the turnaround of labor force is very high. How you're checking them, testing them, how you're keeping. So these are things you do, and people start seeing the results, and the adoption is quicker. Then after what you need to do in the big ticket items, when you get to, that's where I talked of in the beginning. If you are integrating it with your overall manufacturing technology, where it is being, going in and tying up with the OEMs, suppliers, and others who are doing the, providing you technology at other ends. That also happens quite seamlessly and automatically. That leaves you, if you have done all that, I think the culture is set within the organization. Then making subsequent changes become much more easier. And because once, it's like a taste of the pudding, once people have tasted that in different things, then they say, oh, we have done these major movements. Now to ye simple baat hai. Kyun hum packing line mein ye nahi kar sakte hain? Kyun hum, why can't we do this sort of a thing in our logistics part of it? those things become easier. And then I would therefore say, don't try to do everything yourself. And everywhere today, people try to invent the wheel for each one for themselves. Like everywhere else, we are seeing the service providers are increasing. So if you want to do something, say in logistics, if you want to create a control tower, you don't have to create a control tower yourself. There are service providers who will do it and who will do it by maintaining your, you don't have to worry about confidentiality. They will create the protocols and the Chinese walls over there by which it is done. But so instead of you doing it, the technology is moving so fast, somebody else can track your vehicles on your behalf. At that point in time, probably they wouldn't even need a GPS. They'll be able to track it just like, people track flight movements from the clouds. So in that way, so that becomes there. So there is always this temptation which one has to resist, because we are, as a cement industry, sometimes we are very easy target for software companies or software consultants, because in some ways we look primitive. So they will come and tell people that, you can do wonders and do everything. Then people engage this very highly expensive consultants. They turn the organization upside down. Then you go through this process for 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, and you find things happen. That's when credibility is lost. So you need to prioritize what is required, what is important for your business, and then move on. Lest I'm sounding vague, people will try to sell you digital systems, let's say, for managing your sales force. Now, our sales force, the job they do is not very similar to what you'll find in FMCG sales force or in some other. So you need to figure out what are the things you really need to monitor. What is this person going and doing in the stores, and how you can help them in their jobs. Rather, our job is not like, a lot of other service industries also, where you have to track the movement of people, how many calls they have made, where they've gone, what is the interaction. It is not really that much. There is a physical limitation when people are traveling long distances, how many customers they'll see or not. It's not like somebody making calls in a city, going and meeting 5 insurance customers or bank accounts, not 5, 50 people, and you're trying to keep a track of that in terms of their productivity. Here, what is important is if people are traveling in a day 200 kilometers, they'll probably end up meeting 4 or 5 customers. But what you want to see is that when he goes to the customer, the calls are productive. So whatever information needs to be shared, taken, that's there, and then that is recorded and the visibility goes up. You don't need to really track every movement or do a huge amount of analytics there. And that's where people get caught in terms of their, the enthusiasm of digitization.